Hello everyone, and welcome back to my car. I don't have a script for today, but I just to catch everyone up on where I've been heading intellectually, the kinds of people I've been watching on YouTube and what I've been reading, where those thought processes have taken me. None of the ideas that I'm presenting in this video are mine. They're all just things I've picked up from people I've been, as I say, reading and watching. So I'll try to recommend some good YouTube channels, some good blogs, and some good books even. I do occasionally read books as well. So as you may have seen if you watched an interview I did, I think over a year ago now, with Oren McIntyre, that would probably be a very good place to start for some of these ideas, because Oron's very good at organising his thoughts and presenting these ideas clearly. But broadly speaking, Oren McIntyre was a kind of pipeline introduction to what I've now been learning about, which is regarding the study of power and elite theory. So to begin with, I guess it might be a good introduction to explain what I used to believe and what I think a lot of people who watch this channel also still believe, which is a kind of libertarian, populist view of the world where everything is a result of emergent behavior. So things that operate in markets, they respond to supply and demand, and prices are adjusted according to how valuable certain things are, or how difficult it is to provide a certain service. And this we live in a sort of beautiful ecosystem where everything is interconnected, and it's all emergent order that makes sure that all of our shops are stocked with all of the food that we need and all of the products that we want to buy and to use. And all of that is broadly true, especially in an economic sense, where there's no overseeing, all-knowing power who is making sure that that certain shops have enough food for everyone, or trying to control the prices from a top-down way. There's no one who wakes up in the morning, decides that fuel is now going to be more expensive, or that bread is going to be put in this shop in this quantity, and in this shop in a different quantity. There are simply business owners who make decisions for their own self-interest to make a profit. They provide a service. Basically, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, I hope. But this is still basically true. But it has become obvious to me that not everything works exactly like this. So particularly if you look at what we call the media, there's social media, entertainment media, and news media in particular. These things are run by what many thinkers call the regime or elites, which sounds very sinister, like a kind of organized cabal of people who meet all together and make these decisions. Also, education is a big one that I forgot to mention. It's another one that's run by the regime, the elites, the system, and I really want to emphasize that this, or the cathedral, as Curtis Yarvin, Mencius Moldbug, and how or other people who've been reading Mencius Moldbug have been calling it. It's called the cathedral, and I think the cathedral is kind of a bad name because it suggests that it's organized, and that these people are kind of communicating and making plans together. What I'd like to present in this video is a kind of hybrid view of the world that I've been operating under. This is kind of where my thinking has evolved to. It's a kind of hybrid of emergent behavior and top-down planning, especially in things like I just mentioned, in education, in news media, in social media, and what was the other one? Entertainment media. These things they're very much run by systems. And something that you might have noticed about all these things, the news, the education systems, and the entertainment media, they all seem to have a similar worldview that they would like everyone to agree with. And And increasingly this is being called woke, right? So this idea of woke being everything that is wrong with with modern thought. There's snowflakes being too sensitive and trying to make everyone politically correct regarding social issues, feminism, racism, and particularly sort of gender issues these days, LGBTQ rights. These are all things that you'll be familiar with already if you're watching this channel. There's been a slight hysteria about these things, and then also on the reaction to these things, it's also becoming kind of its own entertainment. Watching the world burn has become its own subculture on YouTube and on Twitter, and people pointing at these woke phenomena and being shocked by it and calling it out. But the truth is that the woke phenomenon is kind of it's the trailing edge of a larger phenomenon, which is not fringe but is supported by what we could call the regime, by the elites, by the cathedral. And I might use entertainment media as an example because it's kind of easy to see the emergent parts and the top-down parts of movies and TV shows that are produced these days, I believe. So it will be no secret to anyone that a lot of recent TV shows and movies that have big budgets, that are run by these huge studios like Disney, they have a certain message, and it's not always put in every single product that they make, but you'll never see a counter message put in any of their films. There's nothing that they produce that is against the woke messaging of today. They won't put anything even moderately challenging to any of the beliefs of the regime. And often when they go too far with trying to push a certain message, like being too feminist or being too anti-racist or being too... I think we can all think of examples of modern TV shows and films that include overt political messages that are distracting and that just make the film or TV show a lot worse. And this was often tied to a phenomenon that for a while was called Go woke, go broke. Did I say that right? Get woke, go broke. And the idea was that the studios were trying to push this wokeness onto people. People wouldn't like it, and that the emergent phenomenon that came out of that is that all of the viewers would stop watching, stop giving their money to this, and that the studio would just go broke. Well, it's been years of Disney doing this to a lesser and higher extent for a while. They haven't produced anything really good for years, and yet they haven't gone broke. They keep making money. And so what is really going on here? It's obviously Disney needs viewers' money. They need you to go and see their films and to subscribe to Disney Plus and to buy their TV shows. But more than any of those things, they need to keep their shareholders happy. They need to keep belief in Disney high, so that so that the shareholders don't start selling their stock and the share prices don't start plummeting. So they obviously can't push it too far. It's my belief that they'd probably like to be pushing it harder than they have been. They'd rather put more emphasis on feminism and anti-racism than they do now. But the fact is they still need to try to get people to go see their films. They have to try and make good films. There is a limit to what the elite or the regime or the cathedral, Disney in this case, can force people to do, especially since they are reliant on profits to continue operating. So when they make a huge film like She-Hulk or whatever, they still need people to go and watch that. And when She-Hulk bombs at the box office, that is actually a problem for Disney. Even though they may have successfully created a good piece of propaganda for the regime, they still need people to see it, and they are probably a bit disappointed that it hasn't done very well. There's an element of Disney's business plan that needs to include the emergent behavior of viewers. there is still some power they have over how well their film does. They can still put more and more money into marketing, into viral marketing, and planting people on social media to say that the film is good, or getting reporters to write good reviews of it. They can artificially astroturf a positive reaction for their film, but only to a certain extent. There is still going to be people online saying this film was bad, not going to see it, and ultimately it's going to result in not very good profits. No matter how hard you push a bad product, you can't make people get it. You can't make people pay for it. And ultimately they can't keep making bad films that don't perform well if they want to stay in business. They're going to have to some extent, take reaction to their films into account. They're going to have to take people's opinions and tastes into account. But if you start to look at Hollywood as a whole, as and not just Hollywood specifically, but all entertainment media companies and trends, you can see that there's a kind of feedback loop where even if they don't do very well, She-Hulk may not have performed very well, but it's part of a huge machine that is pushing the opinions of the public in a certain direction. And even if they don't always do it completely successfully, they've probably pushed the public's opinion a fraction of 1% in the direction of feminism, the direction that they want to push the narrative. Now, it's also true that they will have annoyed a certain number of people, and there's a kind of backlash effect where they may have annoyed enough people with their annoying feminist film to counteract that. But the truth is that there's probably a fringe movement compared to this, the broad direction that Hollywood has been pushing people for a very long time. And so when you zoom out and look at things from this big perspective, you can see that the taste of the people, it's not just something that exists in the vacuum, it's a feedback loop. The films that people have grown up with, and the kind of views that they start to see on television, in films, that they start to become sort of familiar with, that they are looking to for sort of narrative direction. They're basing their opinions about things based on the things that they've seen in films. And so they develop their tastes. The people develop taste according to what they see. And so even if She-Hulk misses the mark and they end up not liking that, the general direction is still uninterrupted. And people's tastes are going in this one particular direction, as looking on a long time scale and looking at the population as a whole. There's really not much in the entertainment industry, the people who are actually making money doing this stuff, there's really nothing pushing them back the other way. And so you get a kind of Ratchet effect where this social, these social views that are held by the vast majority of people, they're not going back. They're only ever going forward, because there is no reaction pushing back the other way. The only way you get that reaction is probably places like YouTube that you're watching now, and Twitter, and other social medias that have a this is the only place where we could call the right or the anti-establishment is getting a foothold anywhere. Something I've been thinking about a lot recently is that I didn't get to talk about in this video when I first started, was that there's a certain amount of objection, of rejection, of sort of argument against the mainstream opinion about the sort of woke craziness that the system not only allows, but it also kind of encourages in a way, to kind of give the appearance of a healthy dialogue taking place. So the fact that there are extreme manifestations of what we might call woke, or just sort of far left ideology, just really crazy ideas, like the craziest things that you hear. It may be true that there are some people who really believe that, but they can be signal boosted just to give a new, just provoke drama, basically conflict. There's a sense in which if you keep these things alive, if you promote the most extreme view, not only does it shift the Overton window a little bit by kind of presenting something so outrageous that it shifts the median
the sort of average opinion, slightly the appearance of an average, slightly towards that view, but it also encourages outrage in the rest of us, people who can now think of ourselves as like the sane ones, the ones who are arguing against this. And that's why you get all of these very like well-funded, large channels. That's channels on YouTube, but also things on more mainstream media that are objecting to all of the really crazy out there stuff. But really the opinions that these people actually hold, these professional outrage monsters, these people who make a living expressing the latest crazy, insane thing that's been going on, that this is quite permitted and allowed in the system. These people, as long as they toe the line, they don't go too far, they're allowed to continue on YouTube and other platforms, just as a kind of what's sometimes called containment, or kind of like a release valve. But it also, as I say, it just gives the appearance of a healthy dialogue. They can say that there is a real debate going on, and that this isn't just one-sided.
The only time you can get entertainment that in any way pushes back against what the regime wants is on alternative media, and even here on YouTube, there's censorship to the point that if I started to go too far outside the Overton window, I could get my channel first demonetized, so that I can't do this as a living. I can't make any money doing this. That's just a disincentive, but it's not actually censorship. And then full-on censorship of my channel, I can just get deleted. And there's plenty of channels that's happened to already. And so there's a certain allowable set of opinions that you can talk about. If you want to have your opinion in a Hollywood movie, it had better be pretty woke, pretty right on. You're not going to see me telling my opinions on writing my opinions into a script for Disney. But I can still be on YouTube. But if I started to talk about some of the other stuff that I'd perhaps be interested in talking about, that's even on YouTube, I wouldn't be allowed to have a platform as soon as Susan found out about it. And that is the main mechanism by which views get pushed, I believe. It's not a case of some executive going like, let's just put like 10% more feminist annoying stuff in She-Hulk, and then the next one maybe we'll do slightly less. It's really, I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there's people in Hollywood who are genuinely writing scripts that they like. They're writing the best She-Hulk script that they possibly can, and they submit it to an executive, and the executive, or whatever the person approving it, will go like, yeah, that looks like a good script, I like it. Because that whoever's approving that script, they have their own opinions, and their opinions happen to match the opinions of the person who's submitting the script. And the person who gets to make the decisions at Disney, they're not going to approve scripts that they disagree with personally. And so my anti-feminist She-Hulk script that I haven't written, but maybe I should, is not going to get made by Disney. And really, they don't have to do anything more than that. They just have to approve and turn down scripts according to their own personal tastes. Now, obviously, Disney does have a plan that goes, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years into the future. But part of that plan is this constant feedback loop where they do need to pay attention to what their viewers want and to the emergent behavior of people in the marketplace. In the case of news media, they are often operating on either subscriptions, or they're getting ads on their pages that they get more money the more that ad is looked at, the more that article is clicked on and read. So they need to some extent, they need stories that will grab people's attention, that will keep people reading. So there's obviously an element of trying to make articles that are genuinely good, but often it's just they're trying to get whatever is the most sensational news they can, the most shocking, the most inflammatory news that they can find that's what you're going to see, because that's what grabs people's attention, that's what gets them to click, what gets them to share it, which is still pretty bad, but in the grand scheme of things is a lot less sinister than what is also happening, which a lot of people have suggested, which is that there's these stories are literally handed to reporters, to journalists, to write stories about. These are the stories of the day, and please write these stories, and that's going to be on the front page. Thank you very much. And again, all it takes is for the editor of a certain news magazine or a paper or a website to have their own personal tastes, to have their own personal priorities. It doesn't matter if they've recently been to a meeting to plan this stuff or not. It doesn't require any of that, because they have their own opinions, and they think that articles that support their opinions are better than ones that don't. But again, those opinions of the editor and of the journalist, they always need to be tempered and taking into account of the viewers and the clicks and the money that ultimately all of this is coming down to. With the education system, it becomes a lot more complicated, because a lot of people don't directly pay for their education. It's often the government who pays for education in the case of children and teenagers, and then when you get to university, you might have parents who are paying for it, or you get they're getting a loan and they don't have to pay it off for a long time. And it's not really a product in the same way that news and entertainment are products in the modern economy. So I think what happens there is that the feedback loop is extremely long. It takes a very long time for people's dissatisfaction with education, for that dissatisfaction to become a signal that the universities and the schools can then use as input in this feedback loop. And the complications with who is actually paying for it mean that when they finally do get that signal, it may well be very distorted. It may not be reflective of what is actually best for the students or for the parents of the students. It's a complete mess, basically. I think if any of these institutions are the most corrupt, if I had to pick one that was the very most corrupt, I would say it was the education, for these reasons. But I suppose I'd have to make a whole video just about that. And any of these tentacles of the regime, as any of these institutions is obviously worthy of its own video in its own right. But I don't think I'll be making that video, and I don't think this channel is not going to become a neo-reactionary or a channel about elite theory. I'm just gonna try to confine it to this video and keep it as brief as I can. I really don't know how this video is going to be received, considering there's such a broad spectrum of people who watch this channel, ranging from people who've never heard of elite theory, who've never read Machiavelli, and who have no idea what the Cathedral or Curtis Yarvin or Moldbug is, all the way up to people who've been watching all these channels with me, and who are just to whom all of these are just pedestrian ideas that have been kicking around in their head for years already. I might be being a bit too ambitious with this video, trying to say something that's going to be applicable for everyone on that spectrum, but I'm going to try. For people who are at one extreme of that spectrum, who've never heard of Curtis Yarvin or the Cathedral, you're probably wondering at this point, why is it that if all of these institutions are showing the same behavior and yet they're not working together, why is it that they are all left-leaning? Why are they all pushing the same thing and pushing the same woke nonsense that they've all seemed to agreed on ahead of time? And that is a good question, and it's an interesting one. I think there's no obvious example. I could go on for hours. I have my own personal theories, but I think this video is already long enough, and I don't want to start going down that route now. If you're desperate to hear my thoughts, then do leave your questions in the comments, and I may make a follow-up to this video about some of these ideas. But as I say, this is just basically a rant to try and catch up everyone on what I've been thinking about recently, because it does diverge kind of wildly from where I started on my intellectual journey a few years ago, and sometimes it's nice just to catch people up. If you want to read more about elite theory, there's a kind of concentrated summary of all of the thinkers to date on this topic that I really enjoyed, called The Populist Delusion by my friend Nima Parvini. I'll try to link to that in the description of this video. It's just, like I say, it's just a pretty short book that doesn't try to push its own theories. It's just a summary of all of the main thinkers on the subject. And if you want a good introduction to Mencius Moldbug, also known as Curtis Yarvin, and the cathedral and all of that, then I suggest you watch Oren McIntyre's channel, or preferably for me, you could watch the interview I did with Oren McIntyre a few years ago, and I will link that in the description as well, because to be honest, I wouldn't recommend diving right into Moldbug yourself, because he writes on such a wide variety of topics that I don't even know where to recommend you start, really. So better to have someone like Oren McIntyre, who's really good at reading around. He knows a lot about the subject, and he sort of condenses it into a kind of consumable form. So if you want to hear Oren McIntyre talking to me about the subject for an hour or so, I really recommend that interview I did with him. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you got something out of that. Really interested to know how many of my viewers are up to speed with some or all of these ideas. If you think I've gone completely off the deep end and that I've inserted myself into some kind of crazy conspiratorial pipeline, then please let me know. I really have no idea what kind of people watch my videos and what they really think, unless they tell me in the comments. So let me know, as always. Thank you very much for watching, and watch Women's Hour Fridays at 9 PM. Love to see you saying hi in the chat, and have a good day. I will see you again soon.